Picture this. You wake up one morning in a stable you've known your whole life. Someone you trust opens the gate, slides a saddle onto your back, and walks you down a road you've never seen before. The road keeps going. The trees thin out. The air starts to smell strange, sharp, smoky, wrong. And then, very suddenly, there are thousands of other animals around you. Thousands of men shouting, and the ground starts shaking under your hooves. You don't know what a war is. You don't know what a country is. You don't know that the person holding your reins has been told you might not come back. But you're already in it. So here's the question almost nobody asks. Did the animals know they were going to war? Let's start with the most obvious group. Between 1914 and 1918, somewhere around 16 million animals were brought into the First World War. 16 million. And the strangest part? They came from farms, from village squares where children fed them apples. So picture a horse from a Devonshire farm. He's 7 years old. He knows the smell of hay, the voice of his owner's daughter, the route to the village market. He's never seen the sea. And then a man in a uniform walks up with paperwork, and within a month he's standing on a transport ship crossing the English Channel. Did that horse understand any of this? Almost certainly not. But here's what's strange. Soldiers who served alongside these animals wrote letters home, describing something none of them could quite explain. The horses, they said, changed once the shelling started. They stopped trying to run. They stopped reacting to every noise. They started doing something that looked a lot like waiting. Whether that's understanding or just exhaustion, we'll never really know. But it makes you wonder. In the year 218 BC, a general named Hannibal decided to do something nobody on Earth had ever done before. He was going to march an army from what is now Spain across the Alps and into Italy. The mountains were freezing, the paths were narrow, and he wasn't bringing just men. He was bringing 37 war elephants. Stop and think about that for a second. An elephant is a tropical animal, the largest land creature on Earth. It evolved over millions of years on warm grasslands and forests. It has no instinct for snow, no instinct for ice, no instinct for cliffs that drop 1,000 feet straight down into nothing. And one of these elephants was loaded onto a ship, sailed across the Mediterranean, walked through southern France, and then pointed at a mountain range. Did it know where it was going? Of course not. There's no version of an elephant brain that contains the concept of the Roman Republic. It walked because the people it trusted walked. It climbed because they climbed. And when the snow started and the cold started and the rocks started giving way under its feet, it had no framework for understanding why any of this was happening. Most of the elephants didn't survive the crossing. The ones who did walked into a war they had no quarrel with, on behalf of a city they'd never seen against men who had no idea what an elephant even was. That's a strange thing to be part of. Now here's where it gets unusual. Some of the animals in history didn't just show up to war. Some of them, in their own quiet way, actually changed it. In October of 1918, a battalion of American soldiers got pinned down in a forest in France. They were surrounded. They couldn't call for help. The radios were down, and worse, their own artillery had started accidentally shelling their position because nobody knew they were still alive. They had one option left. A small gray pigeon named Cher Ami. A soldier wrote a tiny note. He tied it to the pigeon's leg. He threw her into the air. And that bird flew straight through the worst battlefield in Europe. Through smoke, through chaos, through the kind of noise no living thing should ever have to fly through, for 25 miles, all the way back to headquarters. She delivered the note. 200 soldiers survived because of her. When she landed, she was missing an eye, missing a leg, and barely breathing. Army engineers built her a tiny wooden leg. She was given a medal. She lived another year. Here's the question. Did Cher Ami know what she'd done? Pigeons are smarter than people think. They can recognize faces. They can solve puzzles. They can navigate distances scientists still don't fully understand. But the idea of saving lives, of winning a war, that's an entirely human concept. She probably just flew home. The fact that home happened to mean 200 people stayed alive. But sometimes the relationship between animals and war got even stranger. During the Second World War, the Polish army was retreating through the Middle East. In the mountains of Iran, a group of soldiers found a small Syrian brown bear cub. His mother was gone. He was tiny, hungry, and alone. They bought him from a local boy for a few cans of food. They named him Wojtek. He grew up with the soldiers. He ate the same rations they ate. He slept in their tents. He learned to drink condensed milk from a bottle and later learned to drink beer from the same mugs as the men. He saluted officers. He took baths in the shower stalls. And when the unit was deployed to Italy in 1944, the Polish army faced a problem. The British rules said no pet animals could travel with combat units. So they did the only thing they could think of. They officially enlisted Wojtek as a soldier. He was given a rank. He was given a paybook. He was on paper a private in the Polish army. And at the Battle of Monte Cassino, this bear, this actual bear, helped carry artillery shells from the supply trucks to the gun positions. Soldiers watched him do it. He never dropped a single one. Did Wojtek know he was in a war? He knew his friends were stressed. He knew the noise was loud. He knew the work needed to be done. Whether any of that added up to war in his mind, we'll never really know. But after the war ended, when the soldiers were sent to Scotland and eventually had to give him up to the Edinburgh Zoo, and his old army friends visited him. And every time they did, the moment they spoke Polish to him through the bars of the enclosure, he would stand up on his back legs and rush toward the sound of their voices. So he remembered something. Whatever it was, friendship, family, the past, something about those years stayed with him until the day he was gone. And then there's the strangest case of all. By the late 1950s, the war between countries had moved into a new place. Not a battlefield, not even Earth. Space. The Soviet Union needed to know if a living creature could survive being launched off the planet. So in November of 1957, they took a small stray dog from the streets of Moscow. A quiet, friendly mongrel named Laika. She'd been trained for weeks. She knew the people working with her. She'd been fed, brushed, looked after, even loved by the scientists involved. One of them took her home the night before the launch so his children could play with her one last time. The next morning, they strapped her into the capsule, and they sent her into orbit. She was the first living creature ever to circle the Earth. She didn't come back. Did Laika know what was happening to her? She probably knew she was somewhere unfamiliar. She probably knew the people who normally fed her weren't there. She had no way of knowing any of that. She was just a dog who trusted people. So here's the thing. Across thousands of years and dozens of wars in almost every species you can name, none of these animals chose to be there. They went because someone they trusted was going, and maybe that's the answer. Maybe they didn't know they were going to war. Maybe they just knew they were going with us, and for them, that was always enough. If you watch this far, the channel's all ready for you. Subscribe. I publish 3 of these every week.